The academy floated in the silence of space, a shining ring of knowledge where many worlds sent their brightest young ones. Inside its vast halls, the air buzzed with voices that carried hundreds of languages, some spoken with words, others with light or vibration. Desks were designed to shift shape, adjusting for wings, tails, or hands of stone. It was a place built to hold difference together. Among the crowds walked a few humans. They were new to this place, still adjusting to its size and strangeness. Other species glanced at them with mixed feelings: curiosity, doubt, even quiet laughter. Humans had only recently stepped into the stars, and to the galaxy's older races, they seemed fragile, too young to carry wisdom. Yet the humans carried something different. They watched carefully, learned quickly, and spoke with a tone that suggested patience rather than pride. Their presence was quiet but noticeable. Some alien students whispered about them, wondering how such a small species had made it here. Others dismissed them, believing they would never last long in a place filled with stronger, older civilizations. But soon, the Academy would learn that humanity had a strength not measured in size or age. The young alien cub was larger than most of its classmates, its body built with natural strength that even adults respected. But with that strength came a stormy nature. Patience was not something it had yet learned. When the teacher's lessons grew harder, when the symbols on the glowing board no longer made sense, the cub's frustration rose like fire. At first it tapped its claws against the desk, restless and impatient. Then its growls grew louder, echoing across the wide classroom. Other students began to shift nervously in their seats, tails curling, wings folding tight, eyes darting toward the doors. They knew what came next. The cub slammed its desk aside with one great shove. The sound cracked through the hall, and the floor shook beneath its stomping feet. Papers scattered, lights flickered, and younger students yelped in fear. For them, the cub's anger was like a sudden storm, loud, violent, and unstoppable. Teachers of other species hesitated, worried about what action might set the cub off further. Some whispered, others froze. No one dared to step forward, afraid of becoming the target of its rage. The classroom, once filled with learning, had turned into a place of fear. The classroom shook as if a storm had broken loose inside it. Desks clattered across the floor, some shattering against the walls, while glowing screens blinked and died under the cub's wild swings. The once orderly rows were now a tangle of broken furniture and scattered lessons. Students of many species cried out, their voices filling the room with panic. Some spread their wings and darted upward to escape. Others crawled beneath fallen desks, while the smallest clung together in fear. The cub's roars bounced from wall to wall, louder than any alarm. The lights overhead flickered, casting shadows that danced across the chaos. The cub, blinded by its own rage, shoved aside anything in its path. Its eyes glowed hot with fury, its chest heaving with every breath. Nothing seemed able to calm it. The teachers froze at the edges of the room. They had training, knowledge, and authority, but none of it seemed useful now. To act too quickly might enrage the cub further, and to do nothing left the students in danger. Whispers passed between them, hesitation clear on their faces. The academy prided itself on unity, but at this moment, fear had stolen every voice. Amid the shouting, the rushing feet, and the cracking sound of desks breaking apart, one figure did not move. A human teacher stood at the back of the room, calm as stone in a storm. While alien staff whispered in fear, she neither flinched nor raised her voice. Her eyes stayed fixed on the cub, steady and clear. Unlike the others, she did not see only danger. She saw a child, powerful, yes, but still young, still learning, still struggling with feelings too large for its small frame. Where others saw a wild beast, she saw a frightened student who had never been shown how to hold back its strength. The cub's roars filled the air, but the human teacher's breathing stayed slow, measured. She had faced storms before, not of claws and fangs, but of tempers, of children who did not yet know themselves. Patience had always been her greatest tool. Students hiding behind broken desks peeked out, their eyes drawn to her calmness. In a room filled with chaos, she looked unshaken, almost unmovable. It was not the calm of someone who ignored danger, but the calm of someone who understood it and knew exactly when to act. The cub's fury shook the room, its claws scraping the floor, its voice thundering like an untamed storm. Every student held their breath, waiting for the next explosion of rage. But then, in the middle of all that noise, the human teacher moved. She did not shout. She did not run. She simply lifted one hand, steady and firm, and pointed toward the corner of the classroom. It was a gesture so plain, so ordinary, that it seemed impossible it could work. Yet there was no hesitation in the way she did it. Her arm stayed straight, her eyes locked on the cub, her expression calm but unyielding. It was not a request. It was a command. The room fell strangely quiet for a moment, as if even the chaos itself paused to see what would happen. The cub blinked, its rage stumbling against confusion. The gesture was one every child, no matter the world or species, understood. It was the universal language of discipline, the clear signal of authority. No tricks, no threats, no weapons. Just a simple point, backed by unshakable will. And in that instant, something in the cub's fury began to falter. The storm had met something stronger, calm human certainty. The moment stretched longer than anyone expected. The cub's chest heaved as it stood in the wreckage, torn between rage and the strange calm now holding it in place. Its glowing eyes flicked from the human's hand to her steady gaze. For a heartbeat, it looked as if the storm would return. Students ducked lower, bracing for the crash of another desk. But instead, something shifted. The cub's roars died in its throat. Its claws lowered, scraping lightly against the floor. Confusion flickered across its face. A child who had always overpowered others now stood before someone it could not move. The command had been too simple to argue with, too clear to ignore. Slowly, awkwardly, the cub turned. Its heavy steps echoed in the silence, each one less angry than the last. It reached the corner, dropped down, and sat. For the first time since the chaos began, the room was still. The other students stared wide-eyed, their fear now mixed with disbelief. Teachers exchanged stunned glances, unable to explain what had just happened. A creature that none of them dared control had obeyed the quiet signal of a single human. The silence that followed was louder than the cub's roar. The silence after the cub obeyed hung heavy in the air. Every teacher in the room, beings of many species who had studied discipline and order for decades, could hardly believe what they had seen. This cub had a history. It had shattered rules, mocked commands, and resisted every lesson of control. No threats had worked, no punishments had shaped it. Yet here it was, sitting in the corner like an ordinary child, its fury broken not by force but by a single human gesture. The alien staff exchanged looks, their eyes wide with disbelief. Some whispered quietly, their voices carrying both shock and curiosity. Others simply stared at the human teacher, as though seeing her for the very first time. How had she done it? What power had she used? But the truth was simple. No power, no weapon, no technology had been needed. It was presence. It was confidence. It was the kind of authority that came not from strength of body, but from strength of spirit. For years, the cub had ignored authority. Yet in a single moment, the human had commanded respect, her calm will cutting through the chaos. It was a lesson that stunned every witness in that classroom. Whispers of the moment traveled quickly through the academy's halls. Students retold the scene in hushed voices, their words carrying awe rather than fear. The story grew, not because the human had used strength, but because she had used none at all. No shouting, no punishment, no threats, only presence, discipline, and calm authority. For many alien species, this was something new. They had been raised to believe order could only come from power, that obedience was earned through dominance or fear. Yet humanity had shown something different, something deeper. It was the quiet weight of expectation, the kind that children everywhere instinctively recognized. The cub's obedience became more than a classroom memory. It became a lesson shared in corridors, dining halls, and training grounds. Young aliens who once dismissed humans as fragile began to wonder if strength was not always loud. Older teachers considered whether their methods had been missing something all along. It wasn't force that silenced the storm. It was respect, drawn out not by fear but by understanding. And in that small act, the Academy began to see humanity not as weak newcomers, but as carriers of wisdom that stretched far beyond words. In the days that followed, the story of the cub spread far beyond the classroom. Students who had once looked at humans with doubt or amusement now studied them with quiet curiosity. They began to whisper among themselves, not with mockery, but with respect. The simple gesture of one human had achieved what entire teams of teachers and guards had failed to do for years. The younger students, especially those from species known for strength and aggression, found themselves puzzled. How could someone so physically small, so fragile compared to them, command such obedience without raising a hand? The answer was not in muscles or weapons, but in willpower, and that truth began to sink in slowly. For the first time, humanity was not measured by its technology or fleets, but by something invisible yet undeniable, the ability to shape behavior with calm authority. Even those who disliked humans could not deny what they had seen. Whispers turned into quiet admiration, and admiration into respect. The humans at the academy walked the halls differently now, not with pride or arrogance, but with the steady weight of recognition. The galaxy had begun to learn that strength came in many forms, and humanity's strength was unlike any other. That single day grew into a story that lived on in the halls of the academy and beyond. The moment the cub obeyed the human's silent command was retold again and again, each version carrying the same truth. Humans did not need to shout, fight, or prove themselves with power. They carried something far greater, an inner strength that could not be seen, only felt. The alien child's fury, once feared by all, had been silenced by calm authority. It was not domination, nor was it cruelty. It was discipline, patience, and a presence that demanded respect without force. Other species began to wonder if this was the secret behind humanity's survival through countless struggles on their homeworld. As the tale spread across star systems, it became more than just a classroom story. It was a quiet lesson to the galaxy that strength was not only measured by armies, technology, or raw power. Sometimes, the greatest force was the ability to guide others with nothing but will and unshaken resolve. From that day forward, humans were seen differently. Their silent strength became a legend, and the galaxy would never underestimate them again.